Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired and taken care of and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about 3 ways to have your best relationship. My guest, Kathy's husband, was depressed, drinking daily, and having an emotional affair for 6 years. There were so many problems and cold wars in her marriage, she was on the verge of giving up. She believed her marriage was a lost cause, but today she has not only attracted her husband back, he put her wedding ring back on her finger in a moving, heartfelt way that made them both cry. They're enjoying laughter and peace in their home, and he sends her sweet videos throughout the day. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. And then I'll be giving out the worst relationship advice of the week award, which I already tried, and I bet you have too, but it only makes your marriage more hostile, distant, and lonely. All that's coming up. But first, let's talk about 3 ways to have your best relationship right now. That might feel impossible already if you're in a marriage that's struggling. You might think, like I once did, that you need to start over with someone new in order to have your best relationship. When you're in a lot of pain because of fighting or feeling abandoned, it's challenging to picture your marriage becoming your best relationship because you're already dreading the future. But since you're listening to this podcast right now, that means you must have hope that your marriage can be happy, or at least that it's worth holding on to. You wouldn't be here otherwise. You'd be listening to some divorce support podcast. So you being here means that you believe that there's enough good about your marriage that it can be fixed. Or you're just committed and you're not going to give up. Or maybe your marriage is pretty good already and you're just looking for how to make it better. Either way, I admire that you're focused on being the best in something that's so important, marriage. So let's talk about 3 things that might be getting in your way of having the best marriage and what you can do to get unstuck. First thing, number 1, is maybe you're on the fence. This was me. I always had my bags packed mentally, and I spent a lot of time thinking about how much better off I'd be with somebody else who would be a better match for me. And I didn't realize that this posture alone was keeping me from having my best marriage or even a good marriage because I was busy imagining myself somewhere else. But I wasn't in that new fantasy relationship, and I wasn't fully in my actual marriage either. I was just stuck, sitting on a fence, feeling lonely, and getting an ever more uncomfortable wedgie. Of course, that didn't exactly bring out the best in my husband either, who was scared because he knew that his wife was terminally unhappy and thinking of leaving him. It must have seemed like an impossible job to try to make me happy under those circumstances. I was on that fence because I was afraid that I couldn't fix my marriage and that if I tried, I would just be a sucker who got hurt even more again. Plus, I had already tried everything, talking things out, reading marriage books, dragging him to couples counseling. I didn't know of anything I hadn't tried. But one thing I hadn't tried was being grateful for the good things that I did have in my marriage. I hadn't considered counting my blessings because I was too busy polishing my resentments. But you can't be grateful and resentful at the same time. And deciding to be grateful for what didn't seem like nearly enough seemed really hard and really scary. I was used to being miserable, and choosing gratitude doesn't really allow for staying miserable. And when I finally did jump off the fence and choose to focus on my gratitude, suddenly my husband seemed like such a great guy. So one way to jump off the fence and lose the wedgie is to drop and do 10 gratitudes for your husband and all the good qualities he has. And if that feels hard to do, well, it was for me at first too. It's a new way of being, and it takes some getting used to. It also takes some courage. The second thing that's keeping you from having the best marriage might be thinking that you need him to change. I fell for this illusion big time. My husband had to change for me to be happy. For so many years, I thought that. Of course, it's not true. But it sure seemed true. I mean, I wondered who would be responsible so I could relax a little if he didn't become more responsible. And who would clean up around here if he didn't start helping out? And if he didn't become more affectionate, how could I ever be happy with so little affection? Now, when I think about asking questions that way, I think of one of those cat videos where the cat sees itself in the mirror and tries to hide from its own reflection, but it also wants to check out the other cat, what it thinks is the other cat, right? It's funny and it's adorable, but it shows a definite lack of understanding about how things work. I mean, won't that cat feel silly when it realizes that was just his reflection in the mirror, right? I was that loony cat thinking I was just being realistic when really I was just seeing a reflection of what I was bringing to the marriage. I was the one squashing my husband's attempts to be responsible, to help out, and to be affectionate. And I know that because I've seen just how responsible and helpful and affectionate he is now, kind of like he was before I squashed him. So I guess you could say he changed in response to me showing up better. Focusing my attention on what I could change about myself instead of spending my energy complaining about what was wrong with him was incredibly challenging because I had a well-worn habit of complaining about him instead of being accountable for myself. But it was also so exciting to discover I was looking in a mirror because seeing through that illusion is what helped me get the gratifying, happy marriage I have now. The third thing that's stopping you from having the best marriage is that you don't have a guide. My parents are divorced, so I was following a failed recipe. I was doing what I saw modeled, and I was getting the same painful result, even though that wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I set out to do at all. It was just all I knew, and that affected my view of what was possible. Divorce was definitely possible. But fixing a marriage after a breakdown, it didn't seem possible to me until I found mentors who had what I wanted. And that's when I got my new perspectives about how I might not be showing up as my best self in my marriage, and that showing up with dignity, with respect, and a smile could make things so much better. Maybe you don't have a good role model for how to have the kind of relationship you want either, but as with improving your volleyball game or learning piano or starting a business, it sure helps to have the support and insights of someone who's already successful and can share what they did to get there. Every Olympian has a coach, and that's a key ingredient to becoming the best. If you want to be the best at something, you get a coach, a mentor, or a guide to help bring out the best in you. Having the best marriage is also a great accomplishment, like being an Olympian. It means you're showing up as your best self. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest.
My guest Kathy's husband was depressed, drinking daily, and having an emotional affair for 6 years. There were so many problems and so many cold wars in her marriage. She was on the verge of giving up. She believed her marriage was a lost cause. But today she has not only attracted her husband back, he put her wedding ring back on her finger in a moving, heartfelt way that made them both cry. And they are enjoying laughter and peace in their home. And he sends her sweet videos throughout the day. And she's going to tell us how she did it so you can do the same thing. Kathy, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so happy to have you here as a guest.
Thank you so much, Laura. I am so honored to be here today.
Well, take us to the beginning of the story. What happened? What was it like in the bad old days?
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a little bit of our background first. We've been married for 36 years, but way back then, I was already a control queen before we even got married. I asked him to prom. I mean, he was a quiet, just a handsome young farmer. He was a little bit older than me. I was only 18 years old. He was 23, and I fell in love fast. 2 years into our marriage, well, first of all, I got pregnant within a few months, and we got married the following February. So that baby was born by July after that. And so our life as dating was very short and sweet. Babies came along. We had 6 children over the course of the next 15 years. But 2 years into our marriage, I felt so alone. I thought that he was working too much. He didn't spend time with me. He didn't want to do things with me. And I just kind of started getting resentful towards him. Those kids kept coming. He was busier outside. I was busier with the kids, taking them to their events. I cooked, cleaned, helped outside with the chores. We had dairy. We were farming. Life was just so busy. We were leading separate lives, actually. And I would start some sort of an argument or something just over nothing. And we would go for anywhere from 2 days to a week without talking. So it was just a very tense time of our lives. But like 7 years into it, I felt we needed something because things just weren't going well. And I made him go to a marriage retreat that was offered through our church. And, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. He's going to change. We're going to be all, things are going to go good. And it did go well for maybe a good week or so. They had us write down, how does that make me feel? Or how do I feel? And we were supposed to do that daily. And it lasted a week, and he just couldn't keep doing it. He just did not want to. So it was a short-lived thing. Over the course of the next several years, we just kept living our lives separately. I started a cake business. I ran that for about 15 years out of my home. I would work all day outside with him and then come in and bake cakes at night. So some nights I didn't get to bed till 2:00 in the morning, and up at 5 and away we went again. So it was just a very, very busy lifestyle of living separate lives virtually.
So you weren't even sleeping during those years?
No, not very much. Not very much. No. And then within a few years after that, he decided to sell the cows, and, he became very depressed, and I tried to comfort him, but I really had no idea how to comfort him. I didn't know what to do. I would, in my controlling way, I would say, well, why do you feel that way? You should be able to just move on and feel better, just like me. I didn't allow him to, even feel anything. So we would, over the time, we would connect at times, and it would just be, a cold war and back and forth and back and forth. And, 3 years later, he lost some of the land here, which he thought he was going to be able to farm until he died. And it just devastated him. So he went into a further depression. And I still didn't know how to comfort him and to, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand why he couldn't get over it. It just kept spiraling down. And by 2012, I started doing direct sales because our daughter had gotten involved in it, and I started it. And I was gone quite a bit, was still doing cakes. I started traveling a little bit. I had actually forced him to go to Florida on one of the trips that I had, won something to go to, and had gotten the tickets without even asking him, made him go. And literally, when we were on this trip, he wouldn't participate in anything. At one point, one of the evenings, he said to me when we had laid down, he said, this just isn't working. And I had no idea what he meant. I just ignored it, brushed it off, and away I went again. And we got back from the trip, and we continued on with life, and things were just still not working. And by 2014, I had gone on a trip down to Arkansas, in which I let him know like 3 days before, I'm going down there to cook for this event, and I'll be back on Sunday. And, I just told him I was leaving. So I went down, and on Friday evening, I noticed in this big mansion, I'm sitting all alone. Everybody's in bed that was in this group. And I was just sitting there, and for something told me something is wrong. Something is wrong at home. Something's wrong here. This isn't where I need to be or what. Well, I didn't know what it was. I went home, got home late. I had an event for our church the next day in which I had to cook a big meal for a church dinner. So I didn't get home till Sunday evening. And he comes to me grabs my hand and says, I've been having an affair with another woman. But I want it to get over with quickly. We need to get this over with quickly. And I need to have feelings for you again. So of course, everything floods through my mind. I'm the wife that's, we'll get through this, at 1 minute, the next minute, I'm the hurt wife that said, why did you do this to me? And then I'm the resentful wife and being angry and throwing things at him, that he's told me, that he's been hugging her, kissing her, whatever. Well, I'd throw them back at him in an argument, trying to hurt him. And it was just a big mess. We struggled. He, wanted to get over her. He tried to get over her. He'd go for a week. He would be laying in bed for a week when he was trying to get over her. There were days and weeks where, while he was trying to get over her, he would go out in the barn. He took the microwave. He took his clothes. He would eat, sleep, and shower out in the barn because he was trying to get over her and try to have feelings for me. And it was just, I would just lay in bed and cry. I would just cry for nights and nights and just, trying to find, what was I doing wrong? What did I need to do? I knew this person because she was working next door for the farmer that we raise cattle for. So I tried to start being like her, wanted to grow my hair longer, even buy the coffee that she was supplying my husband with when he would go over there. I just was trying to do things that, that I thought would attract him back. And it just wasn't working. There was one time I went over there on the four-wheeler just to get him because he was working over there. And I come around the barn and here she is sitting on his lap inside of a skid steer. Oh. I was so devastated. Oh. I flew home with the four-wheeler, ran in the house, grabbed garbage bags, took his clothes, pulled them out of the drawers, threw him outside. I was just yelling at him. I was so angry. And it was just a rage. And it was so many times of that going back and forth. And I even called the cops on him once because he was so depressed and drinking, and he went in and got in a vehicle, and I didn't want him to kill someone or himself. And it was just a big, big mess.
It's so painful, right?
Yes. I had no idea. I know no idea how to fix anything, how to straighten it out, how to anything. And there were times where I would leave for a couple of days just because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't handle not having him, as my husband and knowing that he loves someone else. And at times I'd go stay with the kids, and the kids would, Mom, why are you, putting up with this? Why are you still continuing to be with him? And deep down in my heart, there was this part of me that I made this commitment that many years ago. I love this man. I wanted to be with this man, and we have a family, and I wanted to be a good example to that family. Yeah. So that's what really, really kept me going. About 2 years ago, I started reading your book, The Empowered Wife. Through our church, we have this holy hour, and I would go up there and I would be reading your book the whole time. And I connected with it. But I didn't start applying the skills because I don't know if I needed to hear them. Hear them from you was better than just reading them. So, when I did find you, what I did was I started listening to you on Audible, and it just opened. It was like a light bulb moment. Things were just opened, a whole new world of all these things that I had no idea applied to me.
So you had the physical book and you were just turning pages and reading it. And it was something, but it wasn't enough. It didn't make an impression, or didn't sink in the way. And something about hearing it audibly made it really land for you.
Yes. And that, what landed me with your program was I had gone and Googled how to attract your husband back, because I was just not attracting him back. I noticed the other woman was bubbly. She was, laughing. She was happy. And it's like, I just didn't know what she was doing. What did she have that I didn't have to attract this man back? And it was so frustrating. So that's what I did. I had Googled that. And I remember being at my daughter's house at the time. And I said, I'm going to give this 6 months. And if it doesn't work, I am leaving, because I have nothing left nothing left of this marriage. He obviously is in love with another woman. I'm just going to move on. So I had nothing left to lose. And I went all in. I listened and I re-listened and I re-listened and I listened to the podcast and I followed all of your steps and your skills. And, I listened to just little tidbits of little information that you had in the book. And it is so empowering. It is amazing how these skills all work together to transform everything. I did not know how much power we had in our relationship. I was always looking in the past that he needed to make me happy, and I had no idea that I was in control of my own happiness. So, that's one of the things, I'm so grateful for learning what self-care was, because on the farm, I had no idea. What is self-care?
Right. With a farm and 6 kids and a baking company, right? There was how was there time? You didn't even sleep at night. So, yeah.
No. So that is one of my biggest things is sleep, just getting sleep. That alone. And I'm just in a very good mood. I'm a very simple self-care person. So just little things like taking a bath, makeup, sleep. Those are just such big items for me that it just puts me in the best of a mood. It was just amazing what they did for me. Then when I first started these skills, working with them, duct tape was huge. All of these skills were huge because I had no idea what they were, or how to do them, how to implement them, and duct tape, because I always, in my controlling fashion, had a way of adding my 2 cents after he would make a decision. I always thought it had to be my decision. Mine overruled his. That's the way it was. So
Amen, sister. Know what you mean. Yeah.
Duct tape was huge. So that one, I applied that, and using then whatever you think. And there for a while, I started twisting the whatever you think. I kind of put I'm going, well, whatever you think. I kind of started getting sarcastic about it. So I had to, tone that back and get the meaning and the feeling to it. So
I've done that too. I've said, whatever you think, right? It's like that's not really the intention. It's the right words, but so you were really focusing on connecting your heart to the words and not just having them come out. Yeah.
And not just that it was lip service. I needed it. I needed to be feeling it. So at first, when I did start using those things, it felt, I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to get it out. It felt, like you've said in the book, like sandpaper, trying to say those things because I had never done it in my life. Giving him an appreciation. I had never, yes, I appreciated him, but never told him, oh my goodness, he soaked that up from the get-go. That was a life. It is like a breath of air to him. It is like breathing oxygen for him to receive an appreciation and hear that appreciation from me and a gratitude. And it is
what did you say to him? How did you tell him you appreciated him?
Well, around the farm, because I live in a manly occupation, I'm always trying to do things, and lift pails and carry things. And because there are times of the year where I need to do them because he's out in the field doing something. So I was always lifting the pails and this and that. Well, when I started implementing the skills, he all of a sudden wanted to start doing things like lifting these pails for me, carrying the bales for me, just getting things like a lot of times the machinery. I have such a hard time getting things in a space where you need to get them to back up or to get it someplace. He offered to start doing that. And with learning your skills, just those little things, just to start appreciating. Well, then I started adding, SFPs for him and saying, muscles, or I'd call him Superman, and I'm still doing that to this day. And he just glows from ear to ear. I mean, at first I didn't notice it, or he didn't do it, but he gets this big smile, this beautiful smile on his face when he hears that. So it's just amazing.
Wow.
Just amazing what those gratitudes do for him.
I call my husband Superman too. So it's fun, isn't it? Doesn't it feel good to be able to give that to the man that you love too?
It does. And I just never knew how much that, it meant to him.
Yeah.
It means so much.
And it must have felt weird saying it at first though.
Oh, it did. Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I know I stumbled, and it felt weird, and it probably didn't come out right. And, and of course, I didn't get a reaction from him. And that's the biggest thing with all these things. You don't get this big reaction like a woman would say, oh, thank you, and give you all, a woman-like answer. No, a man, he'll respond in a different way. It comes back to me in his actions. So it's just so amazing. It is so amazing.
Wow. So, okay. And right before this, so you had mentioned also there was an emotional affair going on, right? Okay. And so that was separate than this. Is this the affair you're talking about?
Nope. It's the same woman, but he was head over heels in love with her. And I never knew emotional affair even existed. I mean, I've read or heard since that they're even stronger than a physical affair. So, during that process, that 6-year time of all that, we had done marriage counseling. We tried, I went alone first, and I actually had a marriage counselor tell me, well, you need to let him do things for you. And he didn't explain why or what it does for a man or what. Well, you need to let him do things for you. And I looked at him and said, are you kidding me? I can do things for myself. And I, walked away out of that one.
Yeah.
And we tried another marriage counselor through our church. And that marriage counselor told us to get a divorce after she had met with us a couple times. And it's like, and it was, I mean, I was flabbergasted because you believe in what you started with and when you got married. And here we got somebody telling us through our church that, no, just get a divorce. So counselors were just a dead end deal. So
that didn't work.
No, not at all.
And you mentioned also you were not wearing your wedding ring for some reason at some point.
No. Early on into this, when it was one of the times when he was, trying to get over her, and then he was back talking to her again and communicating. And I threw my wedding ring at him and I said, give this to someone that you really love. Over that course of the 6 years, he did give it back to me a couple of years later. But as he continued to communicate with her, be in love with her, whatever, I had given it back to him again. And I said, give this to someone that you want to be with. Because over the time, I got the impression that he, didn't want to be with me. So I just really wanted him to be, that he felt that he had to be with me because he was quotation mark married to me. So it was just a very difficult time. So yes, I had thrown that at him twice. And, I hadn't had it on here for the last 3 years because he had it. Didn't ask him where it was, but yeah, he had it. But, over that course too, I did a lot of shopping for pain. Oh, a ton of it. And then I would use it as a weapon back at him again, not knowing that I was doing that because this was all prior to your skills, but I would use it in the next argument, or the next time I would be feeling needy or whatever when we were having a disagreement at night, or I was keeping him up till 2:00 in the morning trying to get across my point of how I felt and things like that. And it was just not good. I stopped for so much pain. Yes. The phone, I would look at the phone records. I was looking to see, how much money he was spending on alcohol, because he was drinking a lot. He was drinking a lot daily. It was just a big, big mess.
Yeah. And as a mirror, I love your accountability, Kathy. It's so sweet because as you're describing the story, right, we're hearing just your side, but we can really hear like you're a mere mortal woman and you just wanted him to hurt because he had hurt you so much, is what I'm hearing. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
love hearing about that because we don't always get to see the inside of the relationship, right? But you sharing about it so openly and authentically is just it's such a treat, really, because you're not the only one, right, that went through this and felt, and threw your ring and felt like I just want him to feel the pain that I'm feeling right now,
Yeah.
and obviously he's in a lot of pain too because this drinking is going on. That's usually a sign of wanting to numb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So you got the skills and you started with self-care and you got some sleep and some baths and you were letting him carry heavy things for you and start crazy machinery that was giving you trouble. And you're using duct tape instead of always sharing your opinion. And then you gave him some gratitude. Was there a moment where you thought, okay, this is really working? I think this is going to work.
Yes. Well, and it didn't happen like a light bulb moment as far as one day he wasn't responding and the next day he all of a sudden was. It was really gradual. So it happened because we worked together daily and it was our interactions. They started becoming lighter. Like, say, for instance, when we would chase cattle prior to your skills, we have to get animals in to breed them, to, sort them, do something. And it would be a rage fest. He would start yelling. I would start yelling because I thought he was angry with me. And we would just be yelling and angry. By the time we got done, it would go for 2 days then. We would be so upset with each other, we wouldn't talk to each other. As I was starting working with the skills and they were working, that I saw they were working, our interactions with the cattle would be, he would, suggest how we would get them in and I would duct tape and I would say, whatever you think. And there was no raging. There was no yelling. There was no fighting. And we didn't have the 2-day fight. So the interactions were getting lighter and easier. And like when we'd work on machinery, I'd say, well, I'm always trying to come up with some sort of solution to get something fixed or whatever. And he, I'd be throwing that at him prior to the skills. I'd say, well, why don't we do it this way or this way or this way? Now, when he fixes something while I was working the skills, I would duct tape and they would get done just fine. And even if it didn't turn out, I would then add an SFP to him. You're doing a wonderful job fixing all these things as Mr. Fix-It. I would throw those things in. There was no fights. It was just amazing. So that's how I knew these skills were so powerful and effective. They were working.
So, and did it feel scary to just say whatever you think to him about getting it? Right? It's kind of like you have to kind of get your nerve up to say it in a way, right?
It was so scary.
Yeah.
Now I say it all the time. I even said it this morning. He asked me about something about, he was using the weed trimmer and he was going to clip something. And I said, whatever you think, honey. And it takes the pressure off of me of if something goes wrong, at least then it's not my fault.
Yeah, that's true. It's not your burden anymore. You probably feel lighter.
Yes, so much lighter. I don't have all that responsibility that I thought I needed to take care of before. And, not with his, he's introverted and quiet and shy. So over the years, I was taking over the phone calls. I was making the phone calls if we needed anything taken care of, fixed. I would make the phone calls for the seed, for the fertilizer, for all contracting grain. He is now, without any, prompting of my own, taking care of all that. These things happen without his conscious effort. It is so amazing.
Wait, so how did you make that transition? Like, how did you, because you were doing it all, how did you get out of that?
Yes. It just it just evolved with me building him up with the appreciations and the gratitudes. And, he'll say, well, I don't like talking that on the phone. And, and I know you suggest to say, I hear you, but I learned early on that he didn't like to hear that. So what I say is, I understand. And it sounds very frustrating. And that works in our situation and in our life. And I have used that, since then. And when I say I understand and I understand that it's frustrating, he just picked up the pieces and he's doing it now. And he literally hates being on a telephone. He literally does not like making a single phone call. So I am it is just amazing, the transformation.
It is amazing.
And like I said, without his conscious effort.
Wow. So now what about this? Does this other woman still live on the farm nearby with the cattle?
We have to drive past with the grain. When we sell our grain, she lives in the town where the grain gets dumped and everything. But I, started early on with the work of my coach helping me with your program to not give her any oxygen. And I have not given her oxygen since the day I started your program. And to this day, I do not know who's in contact with her. I don't care. I have not given her any oxygen. And my life is so much, better for it.
I'm sorry I brought her up. That was
it's okay.
Waste a second on her, right? Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt anymore. And it sounds like you now feel special again.
Yes.
Do you think he's in love with you now?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
How do you know?
Okay, so in February, it's our anniversary, and this rolls around 2 days after Valentine's Day. And with me not putting any expectations upon him on a gift or anything, those 2 days rolled by with just a simple happy Valentine's Day and happy anniversary. And a couple days after, we normally, put our full day in and we shower at night. And he had crawled into bed before me, but he crawled in on my side, which he'll do on occasion if he's got a sore back. And so I didn't think anything of it. And I crawled into bed, and all of a sudden he picks up his phone and he grabs my hand and he puts my wedding ring back on my hand, and he turns on this video that he's created with a song. And he loves to do videos. And it was a song that said, with this ring, I do, with this ring, I love you. And we both just broke down into tears crying, and he held me, and it was such a special, special moment that I will never forget it.
Oh, it's beautiful, Kathy. And it wasn't because he had to, because it was Valentine's or your birthday. This came just shortly after that, or anniversary, I should
Anniversary,
say.
yeah.
Anniversary. Yes. So this was just something it was on his heart to do. He wanted to do it.
Yes. And he had saved the video. He had recorded it probably a month prior. And he'll do this. He'll record himself on a video on a touching song that touches him. And he just randomly will bring it out now and just share it with me. He just did one this morning, and both of us were crying because it was a touching song. And he goes, oh, there must be some pollen in the kitchen today. I mean, he makes fun, he makes it fun. He makes it funny. And it is so, so sweet.
It sounds really romantic.
It is.
Romantic. So you're saying, so after 36 years of marriage and 6 kids and a lot of rough years in between, it sounds like you and your husband just love each other, just really enjoying each other.
It is. It has become so peaceful. I mean, right now we are in the most stressful time of the farming he's trying to get the crops taken care of and, before they get too big and he can't work in them. And it's hot. We've had nearly 100 degrees the last couple of weeks, and he is calm. He's pleasant. He's just a wonder, funny. It is just totally, totally different than a year ago. We were on a 2-month State of the Union fight, Cold War, a year ago at this time. So it is totally 180 degree different.
And your 6 months, you had a 6-month deadline for to work. Right? So did it work within that time or it took a little longer, it sounds like?
No, I believe it would. Yeah, it was about 6 months of working your skills that, yep, when he gave me our wedding ring back. Yeah. It was just amazing.
Wow. I'm so impressed and you really thought it was hopeless before that. Like you were ready to give up.
Yes. I literally, my daughter can attest to it. I had told her, I said, I am leaving. Yeah. I'll come and move up by you guys because I just cannot take this anymore. I just can't take not being loved by the person that I'm married to. So it was very difficult.
And now, like, nobody could tear you away, I don't think, right?
No.
Not inclined to leave. So, so what is your tip? So for someone who's where you were, where he's in love with someone else, and there's just this constant cycle of pain, and there's a lot of rage, there's a lot of cold wars with no speaking. And she wants what you have, where he's making little romantic videos and putting a ring, putting her wedding ring on her finger and saying, with this, I do.
Yes. I would suggest, your biggest motto is faith over fear. Know what's in your heart. And if it is to be with that man, implement these skills, get all the help you can from the coaches, from the program, listen and re-listen to the podcasts, your books, and ask questions. If you don't know what it looks like, ask the question, because it is so worth it. I owe my marriage to you, and it has just been a wonderful transformation of me changing up the dance, and him responding in a way that he had no idea what he still doesn't know what I'm doing.
He has no idea.
Yeah, he says, "Are you going to talk to that Zoom lady again today?"
He means your coach, probably.
Yep, my coach.
So has he ever acknowledged you, like acknowledged the difference that you're bringing? Or, I mean, he has in a million ways, but
one day one of our daughters was asking about something, and he goes, well, why don't you tell her what you're doing? He has no idea what I'm doing, but he knows I'm doing something different.
Yes. So your daughter brought up like a relationship challenge?
Yes.
Okay. And he was like, oh, well, your mom knows. Kathy knows. Oh, that must have made you feel so good.
It did. And, now I've since, our children through the time with the other woman and things were strained, they were starting to scatter like flies. I mean, at the time we still had one at home yet, and he's since in college now, but they weren't coming home. They weren't, wanting anything to do with our situation with us, and part of us was putting things on to them. We were taking our problems to them and whatnot. And since then, things have changed. On Mother's Day, I actually apologized to all of them for the disrespect that I showed their father during the time when things were not good. I said, he didn't deserve to be hurt by me in that way. So the boys, most of them said, Mom, that's the past. But, I still needed to apologize because I did not set a good example to them when I was disrespecting their father, just because I was hurt. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed you apologized to your kids. And I mean, no one ever taught you, right, what it looked like to be respectful. You didn't get.
No, I was raised in an alcoholic family, and so was he. And, not to put the blame onto it, but we just we weren't introduced to any of these skills at all.
We just were never taught. So how are you supposed to know? How did your kids react to that apology? That is just amazing.
They have, so I did this, Mother's Day, of course. And since then, the kids, they just seem to be more interacting with us. It's a family again. It's a beautiful relationship. The kids were all here a week ago for Mother's Day and Father's Day, and we had a really good day. Al is interacting with the kids. He's interacting with the grandkids. It's just, I never could have imagined a year ago that things were going to be like this. And I am so, so happy. So happy.
You fixed your whole family.
Yeah.
You fixed your whole family. It's tremendous, isn't it? I mean, it's tremendous. You fixed a whole family. It's just so many people, right? So many people's lives that are impacted. And you're also role modeling something. How many daughters do you have?
I have 2, and they're both asking me now, Mom, how do I do this? Or how should I? Yeah, I've been kind of helping both of them, one of them more so than the other. But yeah, they'll call me and they'll say, Mom, what do I need to do?
You're kidding.
Yeah, where should I start?
They've really seen. So they want to be like Mom. They want to be like you.
Yes.
They want to have a relationship like you have with their dad.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It is.
Incredible.
I'm so grateful.
Oh, beautiful. So what do you think you would say to yourself if you could go back in time and talk to Kathy from before? What would you say?
I would say you did not give up. And that is the, best thing you could have done for your family. I just wanted to keep going. I wanted so badly to be with this man, and I just did not give up. And don't give up, and get all the help you can. These skills are worldwide. This woman knows what she's talking about. They're effective.
Yeah, you didn't give up, and look what you accomplished, right? Your determination, your commitment. Really, there was such a big gift at the end of that, even though you went through a lot of hard times. Before you found a solution. Super inspiring and moving. I just love it. Yeah, I'm really impressed with your story and all that determination that you brought. Maybe being on a farm all that time, it did make you really strong, fairly, and able to do some things that felt a little weird and kooky, but gosh, you were willing, and it really paid off.
It really did. I never would have imagined it when I started your program, but it really all transformed into something new and something beautiful.
Well, thank you for making this big contribution to ending world divorce by inspiring the listeners of this podcast that it really can be done.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here today.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice I find most perturbing this week was sent to me by a student who read some terrible advice that sounds like conventional wisdom. So here's an anonymous shout out to the student who contributed to the worst relationship advice this week. Thank you for sending it my way. Call me perverse, but it feels like love when I get bad relationship advice from you. Thank you. So here's what this student says she came across in her reading. It said, critical mistake that destroys great relationships. Picking your battles, biting your tongue, and pretending everything is okay. It said making this mistake will lead to blow-ups, resentment, and divorce. So the advice is to just start indiscriminate battles and say whatever comes to mind, no matter how hurtful, and stop acting like you're okay with him. Otherwise, you'll fight and get divorced. So start fights to avoid fights, I guess, is the advice. And that's what I'd always heard too. And I took it as license to let my husband know every little thing that he did that I was unhappy about. Otherwise, I was afraid I would be just sucking it up and being a martyr forever. So I complained, I criticized, and I found fault like it was buried treasure, to paraphrase Francis O. Walsh. And funny thing, this did not improve my marriage at all. I don't know why I'm laughing about it. It seems hilarious now. Like, are you kidding me? That's just so silly. It just had the effect of having my husband avoid me and tune me out when I was talking, because who wants to hear that? Not him. Not me either. Not anybody. Just saying everything that came to mind that I didn't like also had the effect of making me feel like things were all wrong in my marriage, because that's what I was focused on. Now, you might be thinking, but what if something is really wrong and you have to communicate to him about it? You can't just bite your tongue and suffer without giving him the information he needs to put it right. Then you really would be a martyr, right? Well, good news. There's a third way in my experience. Here's how it looks at my house. If something is feeling wrong in my relationship, my first question is something really wrong? And is it really about him? Or am I just overworked? Or am I just tired? Do I just need to go for a walk or take a nap? Because whenever I'm feeling like I want to go to battle with my husband, there's a very good chance that I'm just out of sorts. That happens sometimes. That's the first place that I look if I'm fuming because he's watching comedians on YouTube while I'm putting away the laundry. Well, is that really because he's doing something wrong and I need to communicate about it? Or is he just doing a better job having fun and getting self-care than I am? Is he displaying leadership, that it's time to relax and have some laughs? I can look at it that way. I do look at it that way now. And the other reason I don't always want to let a fleeting thought that is going through my brain come flying out of my mouth is because sometimes things cross my mind that aren't terribly respectful. Like maybe I'm wondering when he's going to go get a haircut, or maybe I'm wondering why he still has that old t-shirt he's wearing. As a mere mortal woman, I find that still happens sometimes. Now, saying these things out loud would not only hurt the man I love, they would make me feel undignified, kind of dirty. And that's just too high a price to pay just to be able to say whatever crosses my mind. And I think that's why there's a difference between my brain and my mouth, especially since sometimes I get more perspective or I learn something I didn't know about the situation that makes me see things differently and appreciate his point of view. Like he's growing his hair out on purpose because he's in a band, and that he has that old shirt on because he's about to clean the barbecue to get it ready for my grilled salmon. So a much better approach for me than saying whatever comes to mind is to first make sure I'm happy and rested, and then also pay attention to my desires so I can express those in a way that inspires my husband, meaning without control, without criticizing him. And once he knows what I want, well, that becomes the North Star that he navigates by. Because like thousands of husbands I've asked who all say the same thing, my husband just wants me to be happy. With that approach, I rarely have an issue that feels like I have to go to battle over and unleash my tongue. So I'm not suffering because everything really is okay. Maybe better than okay. And even better, I get to keep my dignity this way. So for that reason, this advice that picking your battles, biting your tongue, and pretending everything is okay will lead to blow-ups, resentment, and divorce is the very worst relationship advice I've heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share about 3 genius marriage life hacks. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that I'm wondering if it's just me or is it kind of hard to put together a so-called easy up.